Halo is one of the most groundbreaking franchises of all time. First released as a launch title for the original Xbox back in 2001, not only has it sold incredibly well, but it later on to become a franchise that many have fondly remembered for years. And while this series is at a slippery slope for a while, it will always be remembered for its high points. For most of the games in the franchise, it has been praised for its gameplay, story, and music. And today I feel like talking about one of these elements, the story. It goes without saying that the gameplay is the most important part of a game, and Halo has mostly done this aspect very well throughout its lifespan. But if a story falls flat in a game, it can get hard to feel invested in the character you're playing as and the characters surrounding you. So for this video, I'll be looking at each mainline Halo game and talk about which missions I think make up for the best moments in the story for the franchise. Combat Evolved has a pretty straightforward story. You play as the Master Chief, waking up from cryosleep, and are tasked to stop an alien race known as the Covenant from activating a giant ring known as Halo, which could cause the destruction of the entire universe. But even with the undemanding story in mind, the story stands out from other first-person shooters, since the characters have their own unique charm to them that wasn't present at the time. And since Master Chief doesn't speak much in a game, it allows the player to immerse themselves as the Chief and the world around him, giving players a campaign experience that they'll never forget. The part that stands out in the story for me is the mission 343 Guilty Spark. This is where the game shifts its tone from adventurous to horrifying. The mission begins with a cutscene showing several Covenant enemies fleeing from a foggy jungle. You don't know why they're running away, as they typically try to go for the offense, but you decide to venture forth in search of your captain, Keys. You head to a structure where your captain is supposedly present, only to figure out that something isn't right. At first, you see some of the usual enemies you have to fight, but then as you progress further, you notice blood and destruction in nearly every corner, with the usual enemies no longer present. In one of the rooms, there's a traumatized Marine trying to shoot you dead.
Stay back! Stay back! You're not turning me into one of those things! I'll blow your brains out! Get away from me! Ah! Ah! Don't touch me, you freak! I won't be like you, I'll die first! Find your own hiding place, the monsters are everywhere! Play dead! That's what I did! Play dead! They took the live ones. Oh god, I can still hear them! Monsters! Ah! Ah! Ah!
It seems like he's talking nonsense at first glance, but there's still a lot left to discover. As the next cutscene triggers, you stumble across a dead Marine. Something must have gone terribly wrong here. You then find a lone helmet that contains a chip, and you decide to stick that chip in your helmet.
Why do we always have to listen to this old stuff, Sarge?
Watch your mouth, son. This stuff is your history. It should remind you grunts what we're fighting to protect.
The chip itself reveals a playback from the Marine's perspective. This perspective shows him, along with Sergeant Johnson and the other Marines. They all enter the same building as you are right now, and notice some things wrong as well, including an elite with his chest ripped out.
Something scrambled the insides.
What's that? Plasma scoring?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was an accident, you know, friendly fire or something?
As they scour through the area, they hear a strange noise.
I don't have time for your lip, soldier. I gave you an order.
Sarge! Listen!
What is that?
Where's that coming from,
Everywhere.
Mendoza?
I don't... There! Mira!
Hold still! Hold still! Let him have it!
A new entity has been revealed, the Flood. This is a really good build-up to a new enemy. It's subtle and quiet, which further emphasizes the creepy vibe the first half of the mission delivers. The second half of the mission is an escape portion, where your strategy is completely changed when you fight this new entity. Instead of trying to outsmart the enemy, you're outrunning them, and the soundtrack emphasizes this creepy feeling of escaping the Flood. The mission ends with you encountering 343 Guilty Spark, who teleports you away from your objective to take you to hell. Overall, the mission shows a great shift in tone for the game, and it's done so in one of the best ways possible, a slow and creepy build-up to a threatening new entity. Halo 2's story was much more ambitious than Combat Evolved, even with the hellish and rushed development that Bungie went through when making the game. The story focuses on Chief saving Earth, and also the universe again, with another Halo that appeared far into the horizon after the destruction of the last one. Not only that, there's a newcomer named Arbiter, facing punishment for his failure of activating the last Halo ring, then regaining his power only to realize that the Prophets were all just lying scums, betraying him and other elites, while the Brutes don't care, and holy shit, that's dark. It expanded the Halo universe and gave a new perspective towards the Covenant side of the war. What were once just aliens you shoot at, became a race of its own society and motivation, especially with characters like the Arbiter and Tartarus. It even provided context as to how the Flood came to be, which is with the Grain Mine, the hive mind of the Flood. The game may not be the best gameplay-wise personally, but it had one of, if not the best story in the series. My favorite part of this game story-wise is in the mission Uprising. Taking place after the confrontation with the Grain Mine, the Arbiter is teleported to the control room where Tartarus and the other Brutes are off to activate the other Halo ring. He picks up a lone plasma rifle and starts to make his way to the control room. Then it comes to the gameplay, where you see things from the Arbiter's perspective. As you head to the forest, you notice a dead elite with an energy sword at your disposal.
Brutes have betrayed us, the Counselors.
You immediately realize that this was the work of the Brutes. After cleaning house in the first section of the mission, a friendly elite appears, telling you this.
By the Prophets, what have these brutes done? They have shed our brother's blood, and for that they must die.
This line gives the player motivation to slaughter the enemy. The Brutes have betrayed what was once a great and powerful alliance, and now it's time to get revenge for the actions they've done. Those feelings of betrayal and the need for vengeance is perfectly captured in the music. The mission onwards is mostly just finding your way to the control room, but the section where your driver goes is so awesome. It empowers the player to think that they got what it takes as the Arbiter to stop the Brutes from activating the other Halo ring, especially with the music that plays in this section. While I may not like this mission gameplay-wise, it gives the player first-hand motivation as to why the Arbiter and the other elites wanted to stop Tartarus and his Brutes, something that could have easily been a cutscene. Halo 3 has set out to do what Halo 2 started, to finish the fight, and finish the fight they did, bringing a satisfying conclusion to the original Halo trilogy. Following up directly after the events of Halo 2, Master Chief crashes into the Earth, and sets out with the Marines and his new ally, the Arbiter, to find Cortana, who was left in High Charity in the previous game.
No, I don't want to chance a remote detonation. I need to stay here.
And to bring an end to the Covenant War once and for all. The trilogy is almost set up like a plot diagram, with Halo CE being the exposition and rising action, Halo 2 being the climax, and Halo 3 being the falling action and resolution of the story. While Halo 3's story may not have as much ambition and complexity as Halo 2's story has, it still brings some memorable moments in both the gameplay and the cutscenes.
I count 2 Scarabs! Repeat, 2 Scarabs!
The best moment in the story for me is in the mission The Storm. The mission begins with you getting dropped to your next objective, to launch a surprise attack on the Covenant. You enter one of the stations to fight off in small-scale battles, but when that next door opens, you notice that the war against the Covenant has hit its climax. Shit has gone down, and it's up to you to stop the enemy. The first open battle section requires you to destroy 3 wraiths in this hellscape of a battle, and the music just empowers you to move forward in the mission with the track Follow Our Brothers, a slight variation of Brothers in Arms from Halo CE. The second station seems normal and similar to the previous one at first, but then drones crash through the window as a surprise attack. Normally when it comes to repeated section in past Halo games, it can get really tedious with the samey feeling and little to no surprise factor. The drones crashing through the window here helps separate this section from the previous one, which gives the mission some form of variety. One small scale battle later, and it's on to the second open battle section, where you had to neutralize some more wraiths. And it really steps up from the previous section. You drive in a mongoose with a marine holding a rocket launcher, and it feels so cool to just lead a marine to where he needs to shoot. After destroying the wraiths, you hear something big approaching.
Stand by. Something big closing in on your location. Scarab, find some cover, now!
The Scarab first appeared in Halo 2, but it was more of a scripted sequence than a mini-boss, as you just had to walk the bridge, jump into the Scarab, kill all the enemies there, done. But in Halo 3, things changed for the better with the Scarab. The best aspect is that it has a less predictable pattern, leaving you more room to figure out ways to jump in, locate its sweet spot, and BAM! And seeing the Scarab go out in a massive explosion is so damn satisfying. One thing I never really pay attention to until I start recording for this video is in the armory room before the crates section. There's Marines trying to help their wounded brothers, and civilians mourning the loss of what can be assumed is their relatives. It's not as graphic as the blood shown in CE, nor does it have any revolutionary animations for the time, but it shows the toll the war has on the humans. Hell, in the last few sections, there's some workers holding pistols that are attempting to assist you and your team, showing how much they cared about what the UNSC is doing to stop the Covenant, even if it costs them their life. As you approach the end of the mission, Follow Our Brothers starts playing again, and now you feel more empowered than ever, knowing that you have more humans on your side. What follows after destroying the cannon is one of the most memorable cutscenes in the entire franchise.
All ships, fire at will.
This is the way the world ends.
The Swarm is great for setting up the climax of the Covenant War, with its open level design, empowering music, and beautiful visuals to accompany it. It gives you a reason to fight the Covenant in the first place. Halo 3 ODST takes on a different tone for the series. with one of the main reasons being that it's a spin-off from the main games, which also strays away from the tone of them. Taking place during the Halo 2 missions Outskirts and Metropolis, you take the role as an ODST, or an Orbital Drop Shock Trooper. They are UNSC units that are stronger than a normal Marine, but weaker than a Spartan. The main protagonist you play as is simply referred to as the Rookie, with your squad mates consisting of Buck, Dare, Mickey, Dutch, and Romeo. As you and your team drop into New Mombasa during a huge Covenant invasion, unfortunately a slip space incident causes you to separate from your team, resulting in you to fall unconscious for 6 hours. After you wake up and exit your dropship, you start to search for your scattered teammates. The missions themselves are played in the form of flashback missions from your teammates before you wake up from your dropship. Ultimately, you find your teammates and escape from New Mombasa, along with a Covenant engineer that could possibly give them the answers to the Covenant War. And while I like the goofiness of the ODST units in the flashback missions,
Tell me I don't have any more flying to do today. So, was that a yes or a no? Amen.
the part that really stood out to me the most in this game are the Mombasa street segments. It begins with you waking up from your dropship, and after nearly dying from a huge fall, you immediately realize you're all alone. You're in a city that's in full Covenant control, with no civilians or Marines in sight. It's just you, the enemy, and the remains of what was once a thriving city. The first Mombasa section emphasizes the fear of loneliness and separation, especially with the first track of this section, Postpartum. And because you're alone here, fighting the Covenant can get pretty intense. When fighting alone in the other Halo games, it's not that big of a hassle since you're a much stronger unit, but here, since you're much weaker, you're more intent to hide from the enemy more than approach it. Your objective now is to find clues of your separated teammates. When finding a clue using your visor, you hear voices of what is soon to be your stranded teammates, triggering a flashback mission.
Tell us her name, Gunny?
Ms. Naval Intelligence. Our new boss. So check your mouths, find your chairs, and get set for a combat drop.
From then on, the tone has shifted to a more somber tone. You successfully found a piece of the puzzle, but at what cost? You don't know if they're even alive anymore, but you had to keep going, because maybe one of them, at least one of them, is still around here somewhere. Near the end of the game, you hear a signal through your helmet.
Can anyone hear me? This is Captain Veronica Dare. My beacon is active. Need immediate assistance. Someone, please respond.
You start to feel a little bit more hopeful, knowing that one of your members is still alive, bringing a light at the end of this lonely tunnel you've been going through. What I love about these sections is New Mombasa's atmosphere. It completely differs from what's seen in the flashback missions and in Halo 2. Instead of a bloody battle arena where you had to push through to progress, it's a lonely city that's completely taken over by a powerful force. The music helps shape up this lonely atmosphere, with tracks like Rain and my personal favorite, Still Grounded, capturing the feeling of being lonely, stranded, and afraid. Halo Reach was a prequel to Comet Evolved, taking place during the Covenant invasion of the planet Reach, which my dumbass thought that this was the Halo version of Earth when I first played the campaign. That was before I played Halo 2. In the game, you play as your own customized character, who was classified as the Lone Wolf before joining your team.
Glad to have your skill set, but we're a team. That Lone Wolf stuff stays behind. Clear? Got it, sir.
That team being Noble 6, a team of highly trained Spartans, much like yourself. Your team consists of Carter, the leader, George, the big guy, Emil, the knife lover, John, the sniper, and Kat, the brains. Your task as a group is to call in from different locations to stop the Covenant from ultimately taking over Reach, with your team slowly fading away as you progress. One of those objectives is to send the AI Cortana, given to you by Dr. Halsey, to the Pillar of Autumn. The fights you come across are tough, and losing your team is heart-wrenching, but in the end, you succeeded and stayed behind, sacrificing yourself for the good of Reach.
But you belong to Reach. Your body, your armor, all burned and turned to glass. Everything. Except your courage. That you gave to us. And with it, we can rebuild.
Meanwhile, the Pillar of Autumn escapes to the Halo ring, kicking off the events of Comet Evolved.
Cortana, all I need to know is, did we lose them?
I think we both know the answer to that.
Halo Reach is a pretty depressing story about struggle and loss when put into consideration, and the part that best emphasizes those themes is in the mission New Alexandria, which takes place after the sacrifice of George.
Tell him to make it count.
It begins with you sitting on a pelican alone, as the Covenant is taking over the city of New Alexandria. The camera cuts between you and the city, showing that the war has taken a huge toll for everyone involved in it. After a moment of reconsideration, you stand up with your weapon equipped, knowing well that you still got a fight to finish.
Your report will have to wait, Lieutenant. The Covenant are jamming all comms to command. Kat needs your help running a counter-op. It's good to have you back. Sorry I came alone. Make him proud.
His death will not be in vain. It's dark, it's raining, the city is in shambles, but you still got a mission to do. That mission being to destroy the Covenant jammers. The battles here, both in the air and on the ground, get pretty intense. You got banshees and turrets trying to shoot your Falcon down in almost every corner. The engineer protecting the enemies in the hospital, along with jetpack brutes near the end of that section, and 4 hunters in the club instead of the usual 2. Before heading to the 3rd terminal, however, you hear a familiar voice through the Falcon's comms.
Command, this is Gunnery Sergeant Buck, the 11th ODST, over.
Copy, Gunnery Sergeant. Go ahead.
My guys got caught in a firefight in the Noble Tower. Roof collapsed. I gotta get over there and get them out.
Solid copy. Noble 6 will escort your Falcon to the tower.
2 stories collide as a familiar song starts to play in the background.
I owe you one, Spartan. I'll see you in hell.
Then it's on to the last jammer, and it's a lot different from the previous sections. Instead of going through an intense battle to get to the jammer, you enter through an empty room with no enemies in sight. It seems a bit too quiet from what we previously experienced. Things seem to be sailing smoothly until...
It's a trap. Get the hell out of there.
You are now surrounded by drones and have to escape.
Thermal looks clear for now. Return to your Falcon and stand by for inspection.
That was fast. After a tough battle near the Oni building, you and your teammates regroup and reflect on the destruction of New Alexandria and the death of one of your brothers.
Look at this place. Used to be the crown jewel. Not anymore.
It's a regular family reunion. Keep him. I gave him to you. I'll honor him my own way.
George always said he would never leave Reach.
The big man was sentimental.
He gave his life thinking he'd just save the planet. We should all be so lucky. You want to know if we're losing?
I know we're losing.
I want to know if we've lost.
Then suddenly, the Covenant strikes at your location, and you and your group try to escape.
First glassing? Me too.
Maybe, but according to Holland, the Covenant are still hunting for something.
Where does he get off calling a demolition a priority one?
Another one of your teammates has died in the hands of the Covenant. The mission ends with a wide shot of New Alexandria, currently in ashes. I think this mission perfectly captures the themes of struggle and loss seen throughout the campaign. The struggle being the battles to destroy the Covenant Jammer, and the loss being the destruction of New Alexandria, and losing another member of Noble 6. The atmosphere of the mission also sets the feeling of struggle. The cloudy and thunderous sky, the fire in both the buildings and the background, shows how the Covenant has been overwhelming the humans in Reach throughout the war. Despite the overwhelming amount of loss that's happened through your experience in the war, your fight still continues. The Halo saga continues with Halo 4. Taking place directly after Halo 3, Cortana wakes up Master Chief from his 4-year cryosleep as they notice that things have been off since they're gone. The Covenant is now their foe again. There's a new force to be reckoned with known as the Forerunner, led by the powerful Didact, and Cortana is going through rampancy, which is basically the AI version of dementia.
I was put into service 8 years ago.
8 years?
AIs deteriorate after 7, Chief.
Halsey.
Chief.
We need to find Halsey.
Chief, please.
She made you. She can fix you.
I won't recover from rampancy, Chief.
If we can just get back to Earth and find Halsey, she can fix this.
So after crash landing the new planet Requiem, it's up to Master Chief to stop the Didact and find a cure for Cortana's rampancy. This story was a very mixed bag for me. On one hand, it had some good moments. The opening shot of the first mission is great, and some of the dialogue is still really cool.
Maybe next time you rescue us, you can give us more time to pack.
Next time.
I also like the bond between Master Chief and Cortana, as they both question the humanity in their advanced robotic bodies.
Before this is all over, promise me you'll figure out which one of us is the machine.
On the other hand, the plot can be really confusing to the casual player. The Didact's motives are convoluted, and the Covenant's reason for being the enemy again isn't explained unless you play the separate Spartan-Up zone and search for all the hidden terminals. The most confusing part about the story is the librarian cutscene, a 5-minute exposition clusterfuck of events that the player needs to know to at least somewhat understand the story. I kinda get that it was trying to focus more on mystery and discovery, and it's a neat concept that they're going for, but the execution just falls flat in its face. There's at least one moment that stood out to me the most though, and that's with the mission Midnight, the final mission in the game, which takes place after the wipeout of the UNSC Science Station, Installation 03.
Cortana!
Chief! It's...
Your task is to fly into Didact's ship and nuke it before the Didact takes over Earth with the Composer, some important Forerunner structure. The first part is a flying section, where you have to fly through the ship's defense systems. You dodge every structure and bullet in your way, as the ship gets closer and closer to Earth. The music playing in this section, 117, empowers you as the stakes go higher and higher the closer you are to the Didact. The atmosphere is also really cool in this section, especially in the part where you have to neutralize the ship's cannons. Seeing the Earth and the Moon in the distance is such a beautiful sight to look at as you try to dodge all the bullets coming after you as the music gets more intense. After neutralizing the cannons, the UNSC ship Infinity opens a path for you and Cortana.
Infinity, you're clear.
Roger that, Chief. You might want to back
back up a little. Main battery, fire!
But when the hole closes, the plane crashes.
I don't think this is going to end well! Now what do we do?
Plan B.
Now it's time to take the bomb to the grave as he continued the mission on foot. This is the second section of the mission, and things are getting a lot harder as Cortana's rampancy starts to worsen.
I always know what to do. I always know what to do.
Not only that, you still have to worry about stopping the Didact. With the Didact knowing Cortana's location, you jump into the first portal as she tries to create a path that can get you to where you need to go. It's a back and forth process with enemy after enemy trying their very best to stop you, but you eventually get to the right path and you and Cortana are now one step closer to defeating the Didact. This is it, the final stretch. Your job now is to disable the Composer's shields. The tracks 117 and the one playing in this section, Arrival, are some of the best tracks Halo 4 has to offer, as they give you a sense of power and strength to such a struggling battle. After disabling the Composer's shield, you have thought you succeeded.
And yet, still you fail.
The Didact has already activated a giant laser, attacking Earth. Things are now getting worse. You start to panic, but the objective indicator starts getting personal with you. It's alright, but you must hurry, reassuring the player that there's still hope to this seemingly endless struggle. In the light bridge, you are stopped by the Didact as he easily disarms you, putting you at a disadvantage. But Cortana is here to save you, risking herself in the process. So now it's time to finish the Didact off, through the means of a QuickTime event. You crawl to the nuke and take one last look at Earth. With the touch of the left mouse button in the PC version, the Earth is saved. The next scene shows Master Chief and Cortana standing close to each other in the bubble shield she created.
It worked. You did it. Just like you always do.
So how do we get out of here?
I'm not coming with you this time.
What? No. That's not... We go together.
It's already done.
I am not leaving you here.
John.
Cortana touches Chief's chest for the first time in her life and says her final words to Chief.
Wait.
Welcome home, John.
As Cortana disappears, Chief just stands there, not knowing what to say or do. One thing he knows is that he has to move on without her. I feel like the mission, despite its gameplay faults and anticlimactic final boss, really sets the stakes for what needed to be done, while also ending off on a note that hasn't really been seen before. In past games, the campaigns usually end on a very high note with either a big explosion or a cool ending line.
Sir, finishing this fight.
But this one takes a different note, finishing the campaign on a more somber note, with Chief losing a thing that he holds near and dear to himself. Halo 4 may not have a great story, but at least it tried something different. It was very hard to find a best moment in the story for this game, and that's because Halo 5's story is a boring mess. The story is told from two perspectives, Master Chief and newcomer Spartan Locke, along with the members of Blue Team and Osiris respectively. The best way I can summarize this plot, in the game at least, is that while Osiris was doing some dirty work in assassinating Covenant leader Jul 'Mdama and retrieving Dr. Halsey back to the UNSC ship Infinity, Master Chief and Blue Team investigate an Oni research ship that was taken over by the Covenant. While doing so, Master Chief gets visions from Cortana, who tells him something about taking over Meridian.
The domain is open. Meridian is next.
Cortana?
John, the reclamation is about to begin.
This leads to Master Chief reassigning Blue Team to go there because Cortana told him so.
You're to return to Infinity immediately.
Negative, Infinity. I don't like it.
Osiris also goes to Meridian because there's Promethean commotion going there. One warned an eternal confrontation and lame fight scene later, Blue Team arrives at the planet Genesis, where they witness the Guardian, who is supposed to be the galaxy's peacemakers. Meanwhile, Osiris teams up with the Arbiter and the rest of his elite squad in St. Helios to get a Guardian on their way to Genesis. They do so and arrive there, meeting up with the Exuberant Witness, the caretaker of the planet.
I am 031 Exuberant Witness, monitor of the Genesis installation. Welcome. Have you also come to stop Cortana from—
Osiris meets up with Blue Team again, who tries to tell him that Cortana is doing some bad things.
Chief, please, wait. Cortana.
She's dangerous.
What?
Spoilers, she was doing bad things, as Cortana reveals that she wants to steal the mantle of responsibility, this circle thing, for herself, which I assume causes chaos since Steve tries to talk her out, saying it's a bad idea.
It's not too late to stop this.
Cortana refuses and kidnaps Chief and Blue Team. Osiris then ends up saving Blue Team and having Exuberant Wellness gain control again, but Cortana has made all the AIs bow down to her, except for this dude, Roland. Yeah, he exists. Then Chief and Locke arrive back at St. Helios, as Chief meets up with Halsey for the first time in years.
It took you long enough.
That's the best I can sum up this game's story. The biggest issue I have with this story is how confusing and boring it is, and how it relies too much on expanded lore, instead of focusing on making a good, standalone story, just like how the other games attempted. Having all of these outside sources be some kind of mandatory way to understand the story is so unneeded, and it basically ruins the story from the get-go. Not to mention the ad campaigns that hyped up the game into a total lie. Like I said, it was hard to find the best story mode in this game, especially after what I said about it, but luckily, there's always positives and garbage. The story moments that suck out to me the most in this game are in the missions Meridian Station, Alliance, and Before the Storm, or as I like to call them, the Weapons Down missions. Meridian Station. Taking place at their mission Glass, where you protect the colonists of Meridian, you go in with your team to discover that Governor Sloan, who luckily decides to be by your side, is an AI suffering from rampancy.
What's wrong with him? He looks broken. Rampancy onset. Late stage from the looks. Probably sacrificing resolution for logic cycles.
I have welcomed you to my home. Do not be so rude as to make my health a point of conversation.
Of course, Governor. My apologies.
But you have done right by my people so far. Have your look, but make it quick. Governor Sloan, out.
So where do we start looking?
At this point, you're free to either chase the objective and finish the mission quickly, or run around and talk with people residing in this area.
Hey, Spartan. My friend here has some strange ideas about the aliens who attacked us.
Eles agiam como se estivesse recebendo ordens de uma grande central de inteligência.
Yeah. He says they were very intelligent.
Uma rede neural tão avançada seria capaz de abordar a degradação que ocorre com o envelhecimento de inteligências artificiais.
And something about degrading networks?
Você não entende? Se as inteligências artificiais pudessem ser hospedadas eternamente em uma matriz de rede, nada impediria a elas de superar a vida biológica.
He says, never mind. Sorry for wasting your time, Spartans.
What I kind of like about this mission is that each person you have to talk to reveals something about Meridian's distrust of the UNSC. That being that a UNSC ship was flying over Apogee Station during an attack there.
You saw a ship? Any markings?
Pound glass, UNSC. It's not my problem if your buddies didn't tell you where they parked.
We might be able to help. Where was that transmission sent from?
UNSC swooping down to take our claim. I'll tell you what, our folks at Apogee are plenty strong. Don't think you vultures can pick the bone so fast.
Thus revealing that Blue Team was behind this, since Master Chief went AWOL after hearing voices of Cortana. Alliance. After saving the Arbiter, both Osiris and the Swords of St. Helios decided to team up to fight against the opposing Covenant and eventually save Blue Team. To complete the mission, you have to check up on Halsey and Palmer. I like this one a little bit better than Meridian Station. Outside of the objective, there's a little bit more personality out there, and it's all thanks to the Grunts, who still have their crazy charm from Halo CE.
You ever serve on a space-time ship while out in space? I was on one for years, but can't ever remember the name. I mean, how come we got such complicated ship time names? Every time you make intel in a battle, the ship's probably blown up before you finish, like, sir, they're firing missiles into CSS Pinnacle, shadowy gumption it up. Too late, it's exploded.
It has a small sense of exploration to see how St. Helios is like in between their battles. Before the storm. This takes place before the final battle against the Covenant, where you have to check up on Palmer and Halsey again. There's not much to explore here except for this section, where fleets of Covenant ships and banshees can be seen from afar. I really like this view because it foreshadows how difficult the oncoming battle is going to be. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Halo 5 has a messy story, but these sections provide some form of world building to the environments that you're fighting on. It's not the best world building, but just like Halo 4, it tried something new. Each Halo story had something that stood out in their respective stories, even if some of these stories are very weak. With Halo Infinite around the corner, I'm both excited and scared for the story they had to offer for the campaign. Excited because from what I've seen, it's a step in the right direction in terms of writing, characters, and soundtrack. And scared because I'm not sure how the saga will continue after Halo 5, seeing it as how there's apparently a spiritual reboot of the series. Either way, I'm still looking forward to playing the campaign, as it retains some of the elements that made Halo special. Even with the disappointment that I felt with Halo 4 and 5, and how I feel that no campaign or story is perfect, this series will still be near and dear to my heart. Who knows what the future will hold for Halo, but one thing is for sure, I'll still play the games to which my heart's contained.